Oh, hi! Today we're going over more of the new subclasses in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Today we're hitting the Monk, the Paladin, the Ranger, and the Rogue. So let's check out those new subclasses. Adventurers, if you like all things D&D, tips, tricks, unboxings, and reviews, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of my epic upcoming videos. So in this video, we're going to check out the subclasses for Monk, Paladin, Ranger, and Rogue. I thought it might make too long of a video to also hit up Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard, so we're going to hit up the magic users in part 3. If you missed the first part, check that out right up here where I go over the Artificer, Barbarian, Bard, Cleric, Druid, and Fighter. Okay, let's get into those new subclasses. Again, I took a bunch of notes on each one, so forgive me for constantly looking down and reading off my notes. There's no way I would remember all this. So first off, we're going to look at the Monk. Now, one of the new subclasses for the Monk is the Way of Mercy. A Way of Mercy monk has learned to manipulate the life force of others and bring aid to those in need. It's almost like a healing monk type of class. Check this out. You actually gain a special mask to wear. There's suggestions on a table which you can roll a d6 or just pick one and you decide what the mask looks like. But think Plague Doctor mask here is some of the artwork in the book. It's really cool. So a Way of Mercy monk actually gets proficiency in insight, medicine checks, and the herbalism kit. This, I think, is going to give this monk the opportunity, if they want, to actually make healing potions too. This would be really cool. So as a Way of Mercy monk levels up, here's some of the other advantages you start to get. You can spend key points to restore hit points. What you can do is when you do Fury of Blows, you can actually replace one of the unarmed strikes with being able to restore hit points instead. That was pretty cool. Level up some more and you actually get to spend key to do extra necrotic damage, or you can even spend key to end a disease or a condition, or even to poison a creature. Another ability of the Way of Mercy monk is that also when you use Flurry of Blows, now this is up at a higher level, you can actually replace each unarmed strike with healing by restoring hit points without using any key points. Finally, at those upper levels, a Way of Mercy monk can actually touch the corpse of a creature that died in the last 24 hours, spend 5 key points, and return them to life with 4d10 plus your wisdom modifier hit points. That's pretty neat. I really like the sound of this Way of Mercy monk. What do you think? Continuing on, we have the Way of the Astral Self monk. Now, this monk believes that their body is an illusion, and they get some really neat abilities. They get the opportunity to, as a bonus action, spend a key point to summon some spectral arms. Now, these arms hover near them for 10 minutes, like around your own arm. So it's like you have an extra set of arms, but they're spectral arms. And they can attack and do force damage. They actually also give you 5 feet of reach when you attack. And they allow you to use your wisdom modifier instead of your strength or dexterity modifier when you attack like this. As you level up some more, your Way of the Astral Self monk can also spend a bonus action and a key point to create a spectral helmet or mask. So with this, you can actually see 120 feet of darkness. You get advantage on insight and intimidation checks. You can speak so that only one creature within 60 feet can hear you. Like, it still makes noise, but they're the only ones that can hear you and no one else can. Or the other option is to amplify your voice so that all creatures within 600 feet can hear you. That's pretty neat. Lastly, as you level up some more, you actually can make a full spectral body of yourself appear as well. This allows you to deflect certain types of damage, and if you have the body summoned, you can do even extra damage when you attack with your spectral arms. And lastly, way up in those high levels of this monk, you can use a bonus action, spend 5 key points to summon all 3 spectral body parts, the arms, the helmet or mask, and the body, and awaken it for 10 minutes to grant you +2 to your armor class and do 3 attacks with your astral arms, a triple attack. I think this Way of the Astral Self sounds pretty neat. I do have my favorites though that you're going to see in this video, but this is pretty cool. Next class we're going to talk about is the Paladin. Now Paladins get 2 new spells in Tasha's, and they also get 3 new fighting styles. They have the Blessed Warrior. This allows you to learn 2 cleric spells. Blind Fighting, which I think maybe our fighter had as a fighting style in the previous video. There's a few classes in Tasha's that have the option of blind fighting. Paladin is one. And again, this is blind sight up to 10 feet, and you can see invisible creatures that are within 10 feet. The 3rd new fighting style is called Interception. This allows you to use your reaction to reduce damage done to an ally within 5 feet that's hit with an attack. In Tasha's, Paladins also get 2 new oaths to choose from. First off is the Oath of Glory. Oath of Glory Paladins believe that they and their companions are destined for glory through deeds of heroism. This subclass gives you the option to use your channel divinity to do a few new things. You can use a bonus action to get advantage on athletics and acrobatics checks for 10 minutes. And you can carry, push, pull, and lift up to 2 times as much weight as you could before. Another thing you can do with your channel divinity is after you hit someone with Divine Smite, you can use a bonus action to give temporary hit points to creatures within 30 feet. As your Oath of Glory Paladin levels up, they get even more features, like you and allies within 10 feet of you can increase your walking speed by 10 feet till the end of your turn. If you or a creature within 10 feet of you is hit with an attack, you can use your reaction to grant a bonus to AC, and if the attack now misses, you can turn around and attack them as part of your reaction. Lastly, in those upper levels, you can actually use a bonus action so that for 1 minute you can have advantage on charisma checks. And 1 time each turn, if an attack you do misses, you can choose to have it hit instead. I love opportunities to do things like that. Lastly, you can use a reaction to re-roll a saving throw. Adventurers, if you're enjoying this video, can you do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button and give us a like? It really helps support the channel. Okay, on to Oath of the Watchers Paladin. These paladins use their minds, bodies, and spirits to protect against extraplanar creatures. First off, some new channel divinity options for them. For 1 minute, you and creatures within 30 feet of you have advantage on intelligence, charisma, and wisdom saves. You can use your holy symbol to try and turn aberrations, celestials, elementals, fays, or fiends within 30 feet by making them make a saving throw. As your Oath of the Watchers levels up, you start to get features like you and creatures within 10 feet get bonus on initiative equal to your proficiency bonus. I think that's a really cool one too. Who doesn't like moving up in initiative? Also, when you and creatures within 30 feet succeed on an intelligence, wisdom, or charisma save, you can use your reaction to deal force damage to the attacker that just forced you to make that save. Up in those high levels here, you get a bonus action to have 150-foot true sight for a minute, or advantage on attacks against aberrations, celestials, elementals, fays, and fiends. Fays. I think it's just fey. Isn't the plural of fey? Lastly, on that high level of Oath of the Watchers Paladin, you're going to get a feature that allows you to hit and damage a creature, force it to make a charisma save, and if they fail, they're banished to another plane. Wow, that's some really cool new oaths for paladins. What do you think? The Ranger is up next. Now, the Ranger gets 3 new spells in Tasha's. And you may remember that from the player's handbook, Rangers get a feature called Natural Explorer, which allows them to pick a favored terrain. That allows them to travel through a favored terrain without being slowed down and avoid getting lost. Well, I don't know about you, but I didn't find that I actually used that all that much from the player's handbook. So in Tasha's, they have another option if you'd like to replace Natural Explorer called Deft Explorer. It allows you to pick 1 skill proficiency that you are allowed to double and learn 2 more languages. You can increase your walking speed by 5, and it gives you the ability to grant yourself temporary hit points. I don't know about you, but I think I like Deft Explorer a lot better than Natural Explorer. Also in the player's handbook, Rangers used to get favored enemy, and all it really did was allow you to pick a favorite enemy, and you got, I think, advantage on survival checks to track them, and you could speak their language. And that was about it. I also didn't find that super useful. Maybe sometimes it would be, but Tasha's actually replaces that with favored foe, and I like this much better. So this is what favored foe is. When you hit a creature with an attack, you can mark them as your favored enemy for 1 minute. While they're your favored enemy, if you hit them, you get to add 1d4 to the damage. I like this favored foe that can change constantly much better than the favored enemy from the player's handbook. Rangers also have 3 new fighting styles to choose from. Again, another class that gets blind fighting if you want. Blind sight to 10 feet, and you can see invisible creatures in 10 feet. I'm sure we all have that memorized by now since so many of these options have blind fighting. Druidic Warrior is another one, which allows you to learn 2 druid cantrips as a ranger. I thought that was pretty neat. Thirdly, you get thrown weapon fighting, which is a +2 to damage when you hit with a thrown weapon. Also, as a new feature that's different from the player's handbook, as your ranger levels up, you get the ability to, as a bonus action, become invisible until the start of your next turn. There are 2 new subclasses available for rangers. The first one we're going to talk about is the Fey Wanderer. This is a ranger where the Fey mystique surrounds them. They're a ranger that represent both the mortal and the Fey realms. I think this sounds so cool for role-playing opportunities, and wait till you hear some of the advantages it gets. First off, when you hit with a weapon, you can do an extra d4 psychic damage. There's a really neat chart to roll on, or you can just choose from it if you want, to roll the d6 and choose a Feywild gift. Now, these don't provide any extra like combat bonuses or anything. They're just kind of more flavor for role-playing, but there's some really neat things on there, like after you finish a rest, you're surrounded by butterflies, or you're able to sprout horns, or you suddenly smell like cinnamon and spices. That these are all gifts from the Fae. I thought that was really neat. As you level up, you're going to be able to add your wisdom modifier to a charisma check. That's cool. And get proficiency in deception, performance, or persuasion. You'll end up with advantages on saves against being charmed or frightened. As you level up, here's another feature. If you or a creature within 150 feet of you succeeds against being charmed or frightened, you can use your reaction to force a different creature within 120 feet of you to make a wisdom save or be charmed or frightened. It's kind of like a, yeah, I'm rubber and you're glue type of thing. Kind of fun. Get into those higher levels of the Fey Wanderer and you can cast Summon Fey without using a spell slot. And even up higher, you can cast Misty Step without using a spell slot. The other really neat Ranger subclass, I like this one a lot, let me know if you do too, is called the Swarm Keeper. And it's kind of like it sounds. This ranger reaches out through a magical connection with the world and bonds with a swarm of nature spirits. Again, we have a table to choose from, or you can just pick from the table. Your swarm can be made of insects, miniature twig blights, birds, or pixies. This sounds so creative and fun to me. I really kind of want to try one of these. When your swarm is summoned, you can do things like the swarm does an extra 1d6 piercing damage when you hit on an attack. Also, when you hit with an attack, your target can be moved up to 15 feet by the swarm if they fail on a strength save. And lastly, your swarm can move you 5 feet in a direction you want. Eventually, if you cast Mage Hand, your Mage Hand can be made out of your swarm. So like a swarm of bees, the insects, or a swarm of little fae or pixies can make up your Mage Hand. That sounds so cool too. Now, as the Swarm Keeper levels up, you can do things like condense your swarm into a mass that lifts you up. And as a bonus action, you get a flying speed of 10 feet and can hover for a minute. These are some really neat abilities. As Swarm Keeper levels up even higher, your swarm damage will increase from a d6 to a d8. If your swarm moves a target 15 feet, they can also knock it prone. And if you use your swarm to move you 5 feet, it can also provide you with half cover. Lastly, in those upper levels of the Swarm Keeper Ranger, you can actually use your reaction to vanish into your swarm, and then you and your swarm can teleport up to 30 feet away. These are some really, really great options, I think. Like I said, I'm getting really excited about starting to make a character with some of these options in Tasha. One last feature to go over for Rangers is you may remember one of the options in the player's handbook is to be a Beastmaster, and that's what allows you to actually have animal companions. Well, the Beastmaster option in the player's handbook tells you that the beast you choose as a companion has to be medium size or smaller, and it has to be 1/4 challenge rating or lower. They've made some changes to that if you want to use these options in Tasha's, and that is that the beast is revised into a primal companion, and there are 3 stat blocks to choose from: Beast of the Land, Beast of the Sea, and Beast of the Sky. Essentially, you get to determine the kind of animal, so you're not limited by the size and the challenge rating in the player's handbook, but you are forced to use the stat blocks for either of those 3 beasts. So I suppose if you didn't want to be limited to the beasts that are in, the handbook or the monster manual about which ones you could choose, and maybe there's that one beast that's just out of reach for you because the challenge rating's a little too high or it's large size or something, but you really wanted it as a beast, you could work with your DM and choose to still have that as an animal. Maybe it's a smaller version of it, so it's still medium size, but it's going to use one of these 3 set stat blocks and not the stat block for that specific animal. I thought that was a really great option too. What do you think? Okay, time for one of my favorite classes, the Rogue. They've done some really cool things with the Rogue here too. Now, you may remember that one of the great things about rogues is that they get to employ sneak attack. And to qualify for sneak attack, they either have to have advantage on the attack roll or have the target that they're trying to attack already be like engaged with somebody else and they don't need advantage. So that required rogues to kind of work with the rest of the party in order to gain advantage somehow, which isn't a bad thing. I think it's a really great way to use, cooperation and some strategic planning and things like that. But there's a new option in Tasha's for the rogue to give them self-advantage. Check this out. They can use a bonus action to steady their aim. Now, steadying their aim gives them self-advantage on their current turn, but only if they forfeit all their movement. So they can't do any movement that turn at all because they've obviously standing still and steadying their aim with whatever it is they're about to fire off or shoot or throw. But it's going to allow them to give themselves advantage, which I thought was really, really cool. Sometimes you don't always get that opportunity, no matter what's going on in battle, to get advantage through the other members of the party. Sure, you can get advantage from, hiding or going invisible as well, but it only kind of makes sense if a rogue can get advantage from being invisible or if they can get advantage by hiding behind something, but then it gives away their position, that why shouldn't they be able to stop, not move at all, concentrate on aiming, and give themselves advantage? I thought this was a great option. Make sure you check with your DM to see if they're allowing something like this, but I think it's pretty cool. 2 new subclasses are available for rogues in Tasha's. We have the Phantom Rogue. I like the sound of this a lot too. Phantom rogues take knowledge from the dead. When you finish a long or short rest, you can choose one skill or one tool proficiency to be proficient in that you weren't before. When you finish a short or long rest again, you can replace it with something if you want. Now, this is kind of along the storylines of maybe you killed someone and obtained the knowledge they once had, or maybe even the party killed someone and you were able to absorb that person's knowledge. So I think that's really kind of cool. Secondly, when you do sneak attack damage, you can target another creature within 30 feet of the first and roll half the sneak attack dice again to do necrotic damage to them. So I thought that was kind of cool too, because it almost makes your sneak attack spread, but then because it's knowledge of the dead, it's doing necrotic damage. That's really neat. I like that one a lot. More Phantom Rogue options. As a reaction, when a creature you see dies within 30 feet of you, and I love this, you can capture part of its soul in a trinket. Now, you may remember Player's Handbook, somewhere, I don't know what page, has a trinket chart. I think it said either the Dungeon Master can roll on it or you can choose a trinket. You could do whatever. So it's almost like part of that creature's soul gets trapped in the trinket, and check out the things you can do. While you have a trinket on you, you get advantage on death saves and constitution saving throws. That's awesome. When you do sneak attack damage, you can choose to destroy the trinket and do the half sneak attack damage to another creature within 30 feet of necrotic damage, just like the last ability I mentioned. Lastly, you can also choose to destroy the trinket to ask the spirit inside it a question. Now, it doesn't have any obligation to be truthful, but hello, insight check. Level that Phantom Rogue up some more, and you can choose to use a bonus action to become a spectral form. Yes, you are a ghost. This feature lasts for up to 10 minutes, and you can do things like have a 10-foot flying speed, all attacks have disadvantage against you, and you can move through creatures and objects as though they're difficult terrain, but you take a little bit of force damage when you do so. Lastly, as you get to that top level of this subclass, at the end of a long rest, if you don't have any soul trinkets, one will appear in your hand because the spirits of the dead are just drawn to you. So I thought that was pretty neat too. This sounds really intriguing. It's on my list of new subclasses to try next time I make a rogue. What do you guys think? Do you want to use this one too? Comment below. The last new subclass of rogue is called the Soul Knife. Now, this type of rogue strikes and infiltrates with the mind, cutting through physical and psychic barriers. Let's check this one out. So, Soul Knife rogues get a pool of sonic energy dice, which are D6s. You regain them on a long rest after you've spent them, or after a short rest and a bonus action, you can get one back. So let's see the types of things that you can do with these sonic energy dice. If you fail an ability check that you are proficient in, you can add a sonic dice to the roll and potentially succeed, and you only have to spend that die if you succeed. So if you fail again, the die goes back in the pool. Here's another really cool one. As an action, you can telepathically communicate. You roll your sonic die to see how many hours you can communicate with someone telepathically, and you can send messages to them up to a mile away. Level up that Soul Knife rogue some more, and you can do things like, in your free hand, you can manifest a psychic blade and attack with it for psychic damage. Once it hits and does damage, then it vanishes. And if your second hand is also free, you can do it again as a bonus action. Now with this psychic blade, if it misses, you can actually spend a sonic energy die to add to the roll and see if you can hit instead. Now this psychic blade can do a lot of other cool things too. Check this out. As a bonus action, manifest the psychic blade, expend a sonic energy die and throw the blade, and then teleport to the blade and the blade vanishes. I thought that was a pretty cool way to teleport, don't you think? As your Soul Knife rogue levels up, eventually too, you get the ability to use an action to magically become invisible for an hour. If you deal damage or force a creature to make a saving throw, then it dispels. It's time for the epic question of the day. Which one of these subclasses in today's video are you most excited about playing? I'm pretty excited about the Swarm Keeper Ranger and the Phantom Rogue. Let me know in the comments down below which one you're dying to play. Now go have an epic adventure.